Good morning. The message I'd like to share with you today is taken from the book of Matthew and chapters 20 and 21. We're talking about the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. Now, it's interesting that the record of this action is in the middle of the Gospels, which suggests that there's a lot more to learn about Jesus after his resurrection than before. But before we get into this passage, let's just notice a few things. There is always much more than you realize. The context. This is on the road to Bethphage, and two blind men are calling out to Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on us. And Jesus says to them, what is it you want me to do? They ask for healing, and Jesus heals them. Now, this is the first time that Jesus has been given the messianic title and allowed it to be said in public. Who is, for instance, the Son of David? When the blind man called out, Son of David, everyone knew who that was. The Son of David was the messianic king that had been predicted for centuries. The Son of David was the ultimate king, the final king of the world. For the first time, Jesus accepts this title when this man says, Son of David, ultimate king of the world. Jesus says, yes. And everybody gasps. Can you imagine, particularly the apostles, how they would have gasped because they had from the very beginning wanted Jesus to actually declare himself as the king. They knew of his power, they saw what he could do, and they so wanted him to publicly proclaim it. And now he does, just like that. And they gasp. Wow. Because they know what this means. This is a crisis. This is a do or die situation. Jesus publicly declares himself as the Messiah, the deliverer. This means that he now has to triumph. He has to take the kingship or be crushed by the authorities, and the authorities will be forced into trying to crush him. So when they heard Jesus say, yes, they must have been absolutely thrilled and excited, but also absolutely terrified, because they knew this was do or die time. They knew time was running out. This was the final gun lap. Now we see the disciples are very excited. They're very happy. At last, Jesus is going to tell everybody who he is. He said, let's go. Come on, let's go. You can raise the dead. You can calm the storms. You can rid us of these Romans. A piece of cake. Jesus would always respond to them with, whenever they said this before, he would always say, no, the Son of Man will suffer great things. He's going to suffer death. But now, finally, he's saying something different. He's doing what they want. So instead of getting a war horse, instead of riding in as a ruler, a general, what's he doing? The steed of a king is never a donkey, is it? So Jesus is sending out here very mixed signals. He's saying he's coming as a gentle guru type wandering king, or a king, or a leader to kick out the Romans. What is he going to be? Is he going to be a king, or is he going to be a gentle guru? In verse 5, of chapter 21 of Matthew, we see that they say, "Behold, see your king comes to you gentle. Behold your king. He is gentle and he is coming." This is a time in Jerusalem of great tension. And we see here that Jesus is actually taking control of his destiny. He has actually orchestrated everything that happens next. We're given 6 verses where it tells us how Jesus Christ is in control. He's in control and he's organizing things. Firstly, he sends out his disciples to say, "Go get a donkey." Now, they've been sent into Bethpage. And Bethpage and Bethany, they were 2 little villages very close to each other, and they were right outside the city of Jerusalem. And of course, it's the people there, they intimately knew Jesus. They remember him because of Lazarus, Martha and Mary. They've seen the miracle of Lazarus being raised from the dead, and they would absolutely be the biggest fans of Jesus. But these 2 cities were really close to Jerusalem, and whenever there was a high holy day, they would almost become like Glastonbury. There would be tents everywhere and people there waiting and celebrating and ready to go into the city for the feasts. Masses of people. Also, this place, where they knew Jesus very well in these 2 villages. As I said, they'd seen the resurrection of Lazarus. They knew who he was. They'd seen his glory and seen his miracles. They'd seen the power that he has. And no other crowd had ever seen anything like this. Now, I don't know about you, but I've always assumed that when Jesus said to the disciples, "Trot along, go and get the donkey," when anybody asks you what you want it for, you just say, "The master has use of it," that perhaps he prearranged it. No, I think we should assume that actually the people would know who Jesus was, who the master of the disciples was, and that when they went up, they would say, "Oh, it's for him. He wants to ride it. Fine. Take them. Take the donkey." Because they knew who was going to be riding it. So Jesus clearly expects the disciples to just walk in and grab the donkey. And when the people are there and they say, "What's going on?" Yep. "Oh, it's for him." Of course. Now, as soon as the donkey arrives, there's a crowd of people before and after Jesus. And they're laying down all kinds of coats and they're laying down palm leaves, which is where the term Palm Sunday comes from. And they're laying all this on the ground for him as he rides forward on this donkey. Now, the crowds, you see, they didn't come from Jerusalem. They came from Bethphage and Bethany. They were the people that knew Jesus already, and they were shouting and they were cheering. They were cheering the word Hosanna, which doesn't mean, by the way, simply hooray. No, it means save us, oh save us. And this is what they're shouting as they walk along with Jesus before and after him as he rides his donkey into the city. So when he sent out for the donkey, Jesus had actually also requested the crowd. He knew his fan base. He knew that people would follow him. He is actually taking total control of the situation. He's making sure that his entry into Jerusalem is remembered, and he is being declared the Messiah and the King as loudly as possible in front of all those authorities. In fact, he was laying down the gauntlet. The authorities were going to have to deal with him. Then you see also that he chose a donkey. If you were a king, going into a major city in order to take over and become that king of that city, you wouldn't choose a donkey, would you? Alexander the Great, he didn't go in on a donkey. He went in on a great big wonderful steed, made possibly a stallion, and he would have been dressed in all his armor and warrior outfits. So Jesus, he just goes in on a donkey. Now, one thing we do know about Jesus is that he is incredibly humble. Probably there was nobody more humble than Jesus. But also we notice that he's not exactly modest. He can be gentle, he can be compassionate, loving, serving, amazingly so. But then he takes on these incredible claims about himself. Over and over again he says, I am the king of the universe. He goes into the temple and he's clearing out. He says, my house. How dare you do this in my house? Hang on a minute, isn't the temple God's house? Yes, he's claiming to be God. Jesus is always throwing his kingship and identity at you. He's always making sure you hear it. There's no way he was simply going to slip into Jerusalem and on the quiet. No, Jesus says, crown me or kill me. Nothing in them. Jesus is forcing everybody's hand, crown me or kill me.